All right, home stretch. We're live. We're going round 17 and 18, Hormel Division. Drafting my entire Scott Fishbowl team based on WoRP. So here's where we stand. Before we get started, check out the WoRP tool, southharmonff.com/WoRP. Donate to Fantasy Cares, fantasycares.org. Here's where we stand with 6 picks left. We are rolling with 3 quarterbacks, which I took at the beginning of the draft. 3 straight rounds. Did not realize Josh Allen, Daniel Jones had the same bye. So I ended up taking 3. We're sitting at 8 running backs at this point, 4 receivers, and 1 tight end. Just took my last tight end, or my first tight end in the last round. Here's the WoRP graph. So we're not going to take quarterback, and just kind of highlighting what I did at receiver and running back. So based on the WoRP graph, running backs are obviously the dominant position here. I want to start as many running backs as possible, but also want to capture at least this range of wide receiver before they start to even up here. Is where I want to capture as much of my receiver talent as possible. So I try to make sure somehow by taking running backs in round 4, 5, and 6 and scatter taking the rest of them throughout the rest of the draft, needing to find receivers in this range. So that's why I ended up hitting receivers around 7 through 10. Picked up 4, Ayuk, London, Pittman, JSN, probably planning on taking 1 more. Here's the optimal roster construction as I've laid out from the get-go. I'm probably going to end up with 3 quarterbacks, probably not going to take a 4th. 3 tight ends is probably where I'm going to end up going here, so that's going to be 6. I have 22 roster spots, so the remaining are probably going to put me somewhere around 10, 11 running backs and 5 receivers. So I'm going to end up taking 1 more receiver, stopping there. Going to probably end up with 2 or 3 tight ends and then probably with 3 quarterbacks. So depending on where that number falls for the tight ends, it's either going to be 10 through 12 running backs that I'm going to end up with. I already have 8. So that's going to be my roster construction. Right now, if I had to say, it's probably going to end up being 3 quarterbacks, 11 running backs, 5 receivers, and 3 tight ends, which should get you up to 22. I think that's right. Yeah, 11 running backs, 3 quarterbacks, 5 receivers, 3 tight ends. Yep, that would put me right at 22. So we're getting close. Here's what's available in my league, Hormel Division. Best players available. If you look at quarterback, it's dead. Running backs. So I'm going to plan on taking 3 more running backs. The question is, do I want to take them now versus what's on the board at receiver and at tight end? I don't see a lot of difference here with the running backs that are available. Given that I already have 8, I'm kind of fine with the last 3 just being, hopefully they win a specific role at a camp. If not, they're kind of rotating roster spots. So right now I'm going to move away from running back because I don't see a clear pick on the board. There's actually a couple backfields that you could lock up. You could lock up the Baltimore backfield with Melvin Gordon or Gus Edwards. You could lock up the Minnesota backfield with McBride and Chandler. The Dallas backfield with Malik Davis and Ronald Jones. The Giants backfield with Matt Breida and with Eric Gray. So there's multiple paths I could go, which is the reason I'm going to punt running back here and move towards receiver or tight end. So given that I'm going to end up needing 5 receivers, the question is, where do I take my next one? Where do I take my last one, basically? What am I aiming for? And the ones that stand out to me, obviously KJ Osborne stands out to me. He does have the same bye as my quarterbacks, but if I'm drafting KJ Osborne, he is going to be one of those where, given his offense, given the Vikings are going to be top 5 in probably sheer pass attempts and potentially neutral pass rate. They were last year. They were top 5 in both. I'm okay just kind of playing KJ Osborne when I need a receiver and just embracing the volatility. It's almost like having him in best ball, but you've slimmed your receivers down far enough where you're just going to play him when he's available. So it's kind of a very much cheaper version of like Gabe Davis, I think. And so I think he's probably going to be the pick that I lean. There's probably not a lot of upside there. There's probably more downside given that Jordan Addison is there, but it's really just riding what could be the number 3 target in an offense that I'd much rather have that versus the number 3 in Denver or the number 3 in Cleveland or wherever else you're looking. There's probably not a lot of other players where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to ride the offense in a given week and hope that I catch some couple spike weeks when I have to play Osborne. So I think he's going to be one of my picks. And then tight end, there's quite a few that kind of stand out to me as guys that I'm willing to roster here. It's just, where do I want to draft them? And I think the answer is probably going with Tyler Conklin. I know he's the best available on the board, highest ADP on the board. But there's like 5 others that I'm interested in if I'm going to add a third, but he's the one that stands out in terms of likely being a starter and likely being on an offense with an efficient quarterback. So yeah, I see either Tyler Conklin or Jake Ferguson. Not a huge fan of going with somebody like Luke Musgrave. I know some people really like Musgrave. If you sort by who's been the highest drafted, he was right there with Conklin in terms of how high somebody's taken him. I mean, damn near taking Musgrave in round 11. But I'm fine taking Conklin and KJ Osborne. So those are going to be my picks. And let me lock them in, and then I'll go right back to the roster construction and just talk about what that's going to mean for the rest of the draft. And obviously, if anybody in my league is watching this, they are going to be able to get a little bit of a insight into what I'm going to do for the rest of the draft. But lock in Tyler Conklin and KJ Osborne. So with that, I have 4 picks left. Rolling with 3 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, 5 receivers, 8 running backs. So if you go back to roster construction, here we go. I'm at my 3 QBs. Unlikely I take another. So boom, I've hit that number. I'm at my 5 receivers. Unlikely I take another receiver. Maybe I do. If there's one that I'm like, you know what, that shot is worth taking. But that's going to be very calculated. There's not a lot of receivers I'm interested in picking up that I think are above replacement level. So 3 quarterbacks, 5 receivers. I would say very, very close to that being locked in. Running backs, I'm at 8. Tight ends, I'm at 2. So to hit my number of 11, I'm going to take 3 more running backs. To hit the number of 3, probably I'm going to end up taking 1 more tight end. So that's it. I'm going to end with my optimal roster construction. The goal was to draft this team based on WoRP. I don't 100% love it. Given the quarterbacks, I would have preferred to take my 3rd QB a little later. But because of the bye weeks, I wanted to secure having what I thought could be a top 12, top 15 QB available during those bye weeks. Again, the playoffs are not super unforgiving, meaning like you only have to beat 10% of the teams to advance in the first couple rounds of those playoffs, and you do get your seasonal average as part of your playoff score. So it isn't like a complete death sentence to have a quarterback on bye or even have a couple players on bye there. But you want to give yourself basically max upside. For me, even if I'm drafting more round 13 or week 13 bye players like Osborne, he's week 13 bye. That's fine because I can fill in somebody else during the bye week to play for that. But I want to basically give myself the most upside because there's going to be at least 4 weeks where I'm going to have to start KJ Osborne. I want to give myself the most upside with those spots when I have to start them because I'm going to need my point average to be as high as possible given that I have 3 players that are going to be on bye week during week 13. So just some insight. Rounds 19 through 22. Maybe I'll get done with them this weekend. Draft's been moving a little faster. Now we're getting to the end. People are pre-drafting and whatnot. But yeah, almost executed the plan. Not 100%, but I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's going to be a unique team that does not have a build anywhere like this. I haven't actually seen another draft yet. Maybe there is a couple. So if anybody's listening to this or watching it and sees it, let me know if there's another team that went 3 straight quarterbacks. But it's going to be different. I think it's going to be a different build that not a lot of other people have done. I've seen some slim receiver builds, some 6 receiver builds. I've seen some heavy tight end builds. I've seen a ton of heavy receiver builds, but I haven't really seen one specifically like this. So we'll see. That's one of the goals of a tournament where you're playing against 3,323 other people is to have a team that is unique. So I think I've achieved that. 4 more picks. I'll be back when I'm on the clock, probably sometime tomorrow for round 19 and 20, and then closing it out Monday or Tuesday for round 21 and 22. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed this. Again, check out the WoRP tool at southharmonff.com/WoRP and donate to fantasycares.org. Half of the Dynasty and Chill Patreon money, or there'll be a donation coming from the Patreon going to Fantasy Cares at the end of July. So with that, I'll sign off. Be chill, everyone.